Hello again. In this video, we're going to go over loops and conditionals. So loops are used frequently in programming to iterate through something like a list or a dictionary or data frame. So this is a key part of programming in Python. So there's a couple different types of loops in Python. There's for and while loops are some of the key ones. So for will go through a list, and while will keep going until it encounters a condition that breaks the loop. So with a for loop, we start with the for keyword. We create a variable name here, so I is often used. And then we have the in keyword, and then something to iterate through like a list. We have a colon, a new line, and then indentation. So usually when we type these things, and we pressed enter after this colon, it automatically indents for us. And that's indented by 4 spaces, as you can see. But we can also see when we press return again, it just keeps indenting it. And then when we end the indentation, the loop is automatically ended. So that's part of the simplicity of Python, is that we don't have to deal with adding like curly brackets everywhere, kind of like in Java or R, and worrying about all this extra syntax. It's just simple with the indentation. Also, we can press the tab key to get an indentation of 4 spaces. So yeah, that's the syntax. So then we can see if we loop through this list 1, 2, 3 and print it out, it prints out each iteration. There's also a couple keywords in here. There's a break keyword where we can stop the loop after a single, or this, whenever it gets to this break keyword, it just breaks the loop. There's also another keyword, continue, which continues to the next iteration in the loop. So between those 2 keywords, we can do a lot with loops as well. So with a while loop, similar syntax. We use while, and then our variable name, and then some, so we actually have a conditional. So this is like a Boolean condition. So we're checking that our variable I is less than 10. If that's true, we continue. If it's false, we break. So we're starting I at a value of 0, and then printing it, and then adding 1. So this plus equals 1 is a shortcut. It's a shortcut for I equals I plus 1. So this runs this loop until I becomes 10, and then this becomes false, and the loop breaks. So another couple things that get used a lot with these loops are range and length. So these 2 functions, length again measures the length of how many elements are in our list. So in this case, a lists 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the range will make a list of values from 0 to that, up to that number. So we can loop through a list in this way as well. Not getting super advanced here, but it can be a little bit confusing. So if we want to look at just this range part first, we can see it makes this special range type variable here. And so it's going from 0 up to 4. We can also, if we want to print it out and see what this actually looks like, we can convert it to a list. So we can see it's generating a list 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's another tool for looping. And then lastly, a nice one is the zip function. So the zip function can join together 2 iterables. In this case, we're getting a range from 0 up to 10 and from 10 up to 20, and storing those in the variables I and j. And then we're just going to print those 2 out. So that ends up looking like this. So for a challenge, try making a for loop where you can go from a range from 5 to 10 and printing out those numbers 5 to 10. And you might want to look up the documentation on range, which you can do again with that question mark and the function name, or by Googling Python documentation range. So those are loops. Conditionals are closely related to loops. We already actually saw a conditional in the while loop. So these are like a Boolean condition. So our variable I is 3 right now. So we can check if I is 3 with a double equal sign. And then if it's true, it says true. If it's false, it prints out false, Boolean result. So we can use this with this if and else statement block. So very similar to the for loop, we can do if, then some sort of condition, a colon, indentation on the next line, whatever code we want in there. Elif is like another. So if this is true, it'll run this section and then just end this entire if else block. Otherwise, if this is not true, then it goes to the next elif block, checks if that's true. If that's true, it runs that code and quits this if else block. And then if none of these are true, then it goes to the else section and prints out that. So you can try changing the value of I here and you can see how it changes these things. Again, just like for loops, this is ended. This block is ended after we stop indenting it. And with these if else blocks, we can either just use an if by itself, we can use an if with an else, or we can use an if with any number of elifs that we want. So there's a lot of variation that we can do. So try making your own if statement to check if the length of that A list is greater than 10, and then you can print out something telling us about the length of the list. So that's all for this video. We'll see you in the next one.